My interest broadly is around the regulation of new technologies, digital technologies, but also technologies that are dependent on data. There's a lot of hype in this area, in particular in the world of artificial intelligence and machine learning. As an academic whose job it is to be critical, I see my role as deflating the hype and providing a sort of evidence-based, informed perspective on what matters and what government should care about, in particular in their role as regulators of technologies. A bot is a computer program that in many cases will impersonate a human being online, usually in ways that are malicious or meant to deceive. Not that long ago, social media was social. It was used by human beings who actually had human ideas to share, but increasingly these platforms are riddled with bots. Bots are not just a problem of nation-state actors, but bots are a real problem for the internet economy, the digital ecosystem, because they impact on our trust in what we're doing online. They are increasingly being used by commercial actors or people who are looking to shape and influence public opinion online. I think it would be an incredible pity if we basically polluted the internet to such an extent through artificial intelligence and sort of uncontrolled bots that we abandon it. So in the name of ensuring through a biometric proof that we are actually human, instead of, for example, using a CAPTCHA, identifying all images of a bicycle, there are companies trying to collect biometric information from people. So things like facial recognition, digital fingerprinting, iris scans, this sort of thing, to ensure that when I'm engaging with you online, I know that you are actually human and not an AI. Many of us would argue that minimizing the influence of bots, ensuring that people who say they're humans are actually humans, is a good thing, and I wouldn't disagree. I think my concern is that none of us actually had a conversation about whether this solution is the right solution, right? None of us decided that we wanted a private company to collect our biometrics and to use that data for these purposes. So I think for me, what's most impressive and concerning about digital surveillance, in particular biometric surveillance, is the rate of innovation and how quickly these technologies have improved. So think, for example, of biometric surveillance in public spaces. That used to be technologically quite difficult because the technology system were very good. That is now very much like something that happens all the time. And in the absence of regulation, of course, poses some real concerns to, for example, civil liberties, people's privacy, freedom of association, and so forth. And I worry about a society in which people can trade in data about us in ways that are unregulated, ungoverned, and what that means to our futures, our livelihoods, our societies at large. Something that concerns me is the incredible power and influence that data brokers have in our society. There is an ongoing conversation in the United States about what is an acceptable use of public information in terms of building and trading AI systems, right? So there has been an approach for the past few years which basically assumes that if things are online, if they're publicly available, they are up for grabs, right? So we see, for example, websites being scraped wholesale. Any media that's out there potentially could be sucked into the AI machine. For people who work in this sector, who are building these solutions, preventing them from doing so would basically be kind of killing off their business model, right? But for people who work in the content industry, the media industry, who have spent their lives writing and making films, this is a real threat to their livelihoods. And, there's this real tension between, wanting to feed the AI machine versus kind of preserving creative industries and ensuring that American economies are still sort of productive from a media and sort of content perspective. So there were attempts at regulating data brokers. Those rules are being relaxed and in some cases suspended. But these organizations have an incredible impact on our lives in ways that are completely opaque to most of us. And there's a legal question, but there's also the question of what's ethical here, right? Should we allow, for example, OpenAI or Google or Meta to just sort of ingest all public data without compensating its creators? Or should we come to an agreement about what's fair? There's a lot of innovation happening at the moment. In fact, it's quite intimidating how quickly the technologies are evolving. And I think for me, the most interesting question is what we do as a society in terms of creating rules and kind of governance frameworks to ensure that that innovation, that rapid pace of technological change happens in a responsible, ethical way.